Now for global business updates. Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Basi. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We begin with the latest from the U.S.-China talks. And we've got a clip from Howard Lutnick, who, of course, is U.S. Commerce Secretary, and then Li Chenggang, who is China's Vice Chair of the Commerce Ministry. I really do want everybody to pay careful attention to what Lutnick says and what Li Chenggang says. Let's start with Lutnick first.
We do absolutely expect that the topic of rare earth minerals and magnets with respect to the United States of America will be resolved in this framework implementation. That is a fundamental part of that. Also, there were a number of measures the United States of America put on when those rare earths were not coming. You should expect those to come off sort of, as President Trump said, in a balanced way. When they approve the licenses, then you should expect that our export implementation will come down as well.
Now, Lutnick is already going into details. Meanwhile, his counterpart, Li Chenggang, just kept things at surface level. He was using a translator, so you can take a listen to what he said.
Over the last couple of days, the two teams had very in-depth exchange.
我们的沟通是非常专业、理性、深入、坦诚的。
Our communication has been very professional, rational, in-depth, and candid.
双方原则上就落实两国元首6月5号通话共识以及日内瓦会谈共识达成了框架。
The two sides agreed in principle the framework for implementing the consensus of the two heads of state in their phone call on the 5th of June, as well as the consensus of the meeting in Geneva.
双方将把这些会谈的情况以及原则达成的这种落实框架向各自的领导人汇报。
The two sides will bring back and report to our respective leaders the talks in the meeting, as well as the framework that was reached in principle.
Right, so you had Lutnick saying, oh, they're going into what the U.S. is looking for, those rare earth minerals, saying that we're expecting that there will be some consensus and, we'll get this and that. Meanwhile, China just said, hey, listen, we had a good talk and we will simply go back to our principles and report. Essentially, after 20 hours of talks over 2 days, what we got from these talks was that they simply just fleshed out the framework that was agreed in Geneva about a month ago. And just to remind our viewers, in Geneva, that was where the U.S. took the 145% tariffs down to 30%, baseline 10% plus 20% for fentanyl, and then China took down their 125% to 10%, right? But because China got upset over a number of things that happened between Geneva and now, they basically went back and just said, okay, look, we'll just talk about that framework. So nothing really has moved forward. And mind you, there's a deadline of August the 12th, which is when they are going to revert back to, the heavy tariffs if they don't have an agreement. And while this is happening, July 9th is the reciprocal Liberation Day deadline for the other countries that the United States is negotiating with. So you had April 2nd, which was Liberation Day. It was paused. Other countries are scrambling. Till now, the only deal that has been struck, trade deal of any kind, is with the UK. And that deal stretches back to the first Trump administration in 2017. So the clock is ticking. And the markets were pretty tepid in their reaction. Gold actually climbed. Gold is up about 45 basis points to 3,300, suggesting that investors were expecting a little more, and they were a little bit worried that the U.S. was going more in depth about what they want, while China was keeping things surface level. So it does suggest that China seems to have the upper hand here, because rare earth minerals are very important in weapons production and on other things, which the U.S., who is spending more money on defense, needs in order to produce those things. Over to a lot of technology news coming out. Apparently, Mark Zuckerberg of Meta is pretty upset that they're not moving forward in terms of their, in AI. So they're looking to buy this company, Scale AI. It's a startup, and that's the CEO, Alexander Wang there. This company provides data labels to customers like Microsoft, OpenAI, and Meta. And those data labels are supposed to help them to train their models. So they're looking to make about anywhere from a $10 to $15 billion investment in this startup. They're not buying them because Meta right now is facing antitrust. They have an antitrust case with the United States. So they don't want to anger regulators by going to go and buy another company when they're already facing antitrust issues. So they just want to make an investment. We understand that Alexander Wang has been hired by Meta to come on board to help push the company forward in that regard. So hopefully we get an announcement there, but it would be Meta's largest investment there. Meanwhile, OpenAI has announced that they've made about $10 billion in ARR, which is annual recurring revenues. Annual recurring revenues are a different line item from total revenue. Total revenue includes one-off items. With ARR, you're looking at recurrent revenue from subscriptions. So they've said that ChatGPT subscriptions have climbed. This figure was 5.5 billion as at the end of 2024. It's now almost doubled to 10 billion. So, and it also, investors like this metric because it tells them that the money that they're investing is going somewhere and they're actually making profits back. So, and this also puts pressure on their competition as well, like Meta, which is why you see Meta wanting to invest 14 billion in an AI company. The Nintendo just released figures this morning, breaking its sales record. They did the Switch 2, which they said they were going to delay because of the tariff issues. Nintendo, as we all know, is a Japanese company. They did about 3.5 million units in just the first 4 days. And if you compare that to the first Switch console, which was released in 2017, that did 2.7 million units in a whole month. So there was pretty high demand. In fact, they also increased the price. Despite the price increase, despite the tariff worries, so far the console seems to have been a success in its first few days of sales. I think Tesla, in fact, we saw breaking news that Elon Musk says he regrets some of the things he said about Trump last week in those tweets. But these are full self-driving robotaxis. We finally have a possible tentative launch date for the robotaxis, which are being launched in Austin, Texas. So Elon Musk said that by June, he's expecting June 22nd, the very first set of robotaxis will actually pick people up. So I think they're working with Uber, they're working with some other, I think Lyft, some other ride-hailing companies. You will be able to, in Austin, Texas, as a test, be able to take your phone, request a ride, and a full self-driving car from Tesla will pick you up. Waymo is already doing this. Waymo, of course, is a subsidiary of Alphabet, which is the parent of Google. They've been testing their own self-driving cars in San Francisco, in Austin. So there's a lot of competition here. And then there's also talk about the type of technology that is being used. Waymo is using more expensive technology called LiDAR, while Tesla is just using cameras for their vehicles. Then moving from there to, I think, to Nigeria now, we understand that the Bureau de Change operators are looking for an extension on their recapitalization deadline. So as a background for our viewers, back in February of 2024, the Central Bank of Nigeria it's just trying to sanitize the BDC space. So the present capitalization for BDCs is about 35 million naira. They raised that into two tiers. So 2 billion for tier 1 BDCs and about 500 million, this is dollars, naira, 500 million naira for tier 2 BDCs. The initial deadline was December of 2024. They extended it to June the 3rd of 2025. That obviously has expired, and we understand that the BDCs are trying to get an extension up until December of this year. We're yet to hear from the CBN as to whether or not that would happen. But in terms of keeping the currency stable, in terms of supplies and so on and so forth, pretty necessary. That's our update for today.
I mean, the only way we can restore confidence where Forex is concerned is if we know that these BDCs are mitigated from the risk of creating the cartels that we saw in the past, where an individual would have 50 BDCs, and I mean, it was chaotic. 500 million naira, 1 billion, it does sound steep. But again, I think if you say that, well, they need to operate almost like mini financial institutions, then it does rhyme with that. So I think it's an important framework that needs to be created. Give them the extension, give them a little bit more time. And then at that point, you separate the serious operators from the speculators.
There you go.
So I'm for that. Elon Musk, share prices will humble you. The stock market has a way of doing that. Because we saw how the Tesla shares tumbled last week when that spat happened on social media. But apparently, since he started expressing some of his regrets, the share price has gone up by about 2.5%. Right. So he's got to play the game. Unfortunately for him, as much as he would like to express himself, we all have unpopular opinions that we'd like to voice. But at the end of the day, society is governed by decorum.
Indeed.
Okay, what has happened between the U.S. and China? I think I addressed this yesterday. In international diplomacy, it's called détente. Détente means both sides are talking to ease tensions. And I think that in terms of optics, it's a welcome development. The meeting in Geneva, May 15, and now this follow-up meeting. In between, quarrel over the 90-day ceasefire that they declared. And then last week, there was a phone call between President Trump and President Xi Jinping. That's what has led to this meeting in London. Two things there. Rare earth materials from China, how China can reduce restrictions. Two, the Chinese, they want access to semiconductor chips, which is the main thing in technology this time around. So but both presidents will now have to follow up. But as I pointed out yesterday, this is not something that will just happen overnight. The negotiations can take a very long time. But what we know is that the markets are responding positively. Asia markets responded positively yesterday. They have done so today, whether in India or South Korea or Japan or even the Australia ASCS. On Wall Street, the stocks, whether it's Dow Jones or it is Nasdaq Composite or S&P 500, they've done very well also. Third time this week alone, positively. But the thing is, we'll keep seeing this elevator, this volatility as we link politics to economics. Google is proposing voluntary exit for many of its staff. It wants to reduce headcount. But, people who want to come and work in the office, fine. People who want to make voluntary exit can do so. And it covers K&I department, media department, commercial department. So that's Google. Now, as for Elon Musk and Robotaxi are driverless vehicles. Well, as a result of it, the share price of Tesla has gone up 5.7%. Last week, when there was that quarrel between Musk and Trump, it went down 14%. Yep. Now, it's still about $6 less what it was a week ago. Yep. But we've seen an appreciation just because Elon Musk says, Robotaxi will be on the streets of Austin, Texas by specifically June 22. As for the quarrel between him and Trump, his father says, well, this is a husband and wife fighting. They will resolve the matter. And he thinks that both of them are just under stress. And that's why they fell out. But let's see whether this is truly a husband and wife matter that is usually resolved. How a husband and wife matter? I thought she would know.
Will they kiss and make up, or will they end up in
Anyway,
courts?
thank you very much.
Thank you.